to meet you. I'm Dr. Michigo Kim. Hello, I'm Kim Ki-won from Rich High Rent. Until now, no matter how high the rent was, as long as it didn't exceed the deposit limit, tenants could sign up for guarantee insurance. But now things have changed a bit. It is said that it is becoming difficult for high-rent tenants to sign up surety insurance. Today, we will discuss the topic of how these changes will affect the real estate market.
The idea of guaranteeing lease deposits began with good intentions, but the results have been poor. It's costing citizens in taxes, leading to a major crisis. I hope we stop this waste of taxpayers' money. Recent articles show business losses of about 4 trillion won due to leaseholder issues. I hope they stop this waste. That's my thought. And if you look at recent articles, you'll see that because of this situation with leaseholders, business losses have reached about 4 trillion won. It's quite significant, isn't it? So they're also talking about issuing bonds this time. They're saying they're going to issue about 700 billion won in new capital securities. But the problem is that this is all just pouring water into a bottomless pit. What this means is that they provided a guarantee for the lease. So the landlord has to cover this, right? Right. They couldn't cover. That amount of money has already exceeded 4 trillion won from January 1st to October this year. The number of cases is almost 20,000. Right now, it's over 1,800 cases. This is really a very serious problem. Now, let's take a look at how serious the situation has become over the years. If you look at it, back in around 2020, there weren't many guarantee or lease guarantee incidents. Right. There were about 2,400 cases, and the amount was around 460 billion. But here, it increased a bit in 2021. In 2022, it grew quite a bit, right? But what happened in 2023? It's increased by about 3 times, almost 3 times. And even though we haven't finished tallying everything for this year yet, it's already almost similar to last year's scale.
As you mentioned, there are continuous reports about how HUG is in massive debt because they haven't been able to recover the funds. Isn't that ultimately going to come out of our taxes? So thinking about that, it's natural to feel a bit worried.
It's really concerning right now. Just by saving this tax money that's literally being wasted like pouring water into a bottomless pit, there are so many things we could do to enhance the country's competitiveness. Now, while it's important to look at the incidents of lease guarantees, what do we need to do when an incident occurs? What does the HUG do next?
We need to handle it.
That's right. To whom? To the landlord. We need to collect this from the landlord. If you look at it, the total amount of subrogation payments from 2013 to August 2024 is over 8 trillion won. But the recovery rate is only about 22%. Originally, this wasn't high either. But if we just look at this year, just this year, what's the recovery rate?
It's not even 8% or 10%. In terms of the recovery rate.
No. What is this? If we are a bank, what would that mean? What does it mean that we're giving out loans and the recovery rate is this bad? You just go straight in. So, in this situation, are we really going to pour more tax money into this? What do you think? I think some of our Michigo's money is probably involved too.
I think I have some money in there. My money is also involved.
Well, if we can actually recover it, then it might be okay, even if it's a bit tough right now. But what do you feel about it? Do you think this will actually be recovered?
Exactly. I feel like there might be even more that hasn't been recovered. And I'm curious about how we're going to fill that gap. It also seems like we might have given benefits for this without any real plan. Exactly.
So, I've mentioned this a few times on the show, but what I mean is that it started with good intentions, but we need to consider the side effects and other factors when making policies. However, it seems like we're just going ahead with good intentions, and now there are so many things going wrong, and in the end, it's all being covered by the country's taxes. Right. We have to fill all of that in. But the important thing is that in a time of population growth and economic expansion, even if there are slight losses, there are still plenty of people to make up for it. But now, is there anyone to make up for it? No. It's really serious to spend the people's taxes so recklessly when there's no one to make up for it. And what's going to happen in the future is that there will be huge conflicts because during the times of growth, many things were given benefits under good intentions. But now the coffers are gradually running dry, right? Then we have to get rid of all of this. But what problems will arise if we get rid of it? The beneficiaries? That's right. The people who receive the benefits are asking why they should take them away, what's going on. In the end, these things inevitably lead to government debt, and I really think we're in a very dangerous situation where we could all end up on a path to mutual destruction.
There might be some effects from the overall fraud, but problem has gotten bigger because benefits were given even to those in high-value Johns contracts. So this time they announced that they won't be signing guarantees for those in high-value Johns contracts. I'm also curious about people who live in a house with a deposit of 700 million won, a monthly rent of 5 million won.
The deposit of 700 million won and a monthly rent of 5 million, that's nearly a full payment.
Right. But those people were also given benefits, right?
People like that.
They used to provide benefits, but is it really necessary to extend that to these people? What do you think?
I'm wondering, is there really a need to provide a deposit guarantee for them?
Exactly.
No, there's no need to do that. I think this way, the situation is really tough right now, so I don't know if they're trying to give the public some kind of relief. But let me first share the details, and then I'll give you my honest thoughts a bit later. So, as you can see, when entering into a so-called high-value Johns contract where you pay a high monthly rent instead of a low deposit, they will no longer provide a guarantee for the Johnson. So, starting from the new applications on the 30th, the key point is that a conversion rate of 6% for Johns to monthly rent will be applied. So, when converting Johns to monthly rent, they will look into how much the deposit is and then decide whether to provide a guarantee. So originally, how it was permitted was that in the metropolitan area, it was allowed up to 700 million won. In the provinces, they allowed guarantee registration for deposits of 500 million won or less. They only considered the total amount of the deposit, didn't take into account how much the monthly rent is at all. So what does that mean? For example, a lease deposit of 700 million won with a monthly rent of over 5 million won or even 10 million won, like in Won Valley. Yes. So it was possible. Join the lease guarantee, even with such excess deposits.
Considering that the original intention was to protect the working class, do you think the purpose of this recent announcement is well thought out?
No, don't think it has any meaning.
Rather.
What does this even mean? I mean, if the deposit is 700 million won and the monthly rent is around 5 million won, then how much would the purchase price be?
So it's changed now. They're saying they won't provide it.
It's fine. They announced they won't provide it. If we have this, let's say we have an apartment worth 3 billion won. For a 3 billion won apartment, you'd be paying this kind of monthly rent. Let's say it's a 3 billion won property. So if this 3 billion won property has a loan of 1 billion won attached to it, lease is 1.5 billion won, loan 1 billion won, lease 1.5 billion won, total 2.5 billion won, 100 million won less than purchase price. Do you think I can get a lease? Isn't it possible? Oh, I should buy it. Lease? If it were me, I wouldn't be able to go in because I'd be too scared. The purchase price has dropped.
It's called reverse lease.
That's right. So, if the purchase price is currently 3 billion won and there's a loan of 1 billion won, but the lease deposit is 700 million won. Pay 700 million won, 100. So, can I move in? They'll cover the deposit. You would be able to move in, right? So, originally, you couldn't move into a house that had a loan. Right? You can't move in with a lease. But because of this, situations where people are moving in with high-value reverse leases are happening. If this doesn't work out, the number of those reverse leases, especially the high-value ones, might decrease a bit. But the thing is, this policy was created for the common people, and it really has nothing to do with that.
So, what are the differences between the current law and the improved content that will be changed this time?
What I mean is, first of all, don't take any monthly rent at all. But now they're saying we're going to convert it to monthly rent. So how do you calculate it? For example, the deposit is 200 million won. The monthly rent is 300. So we need to calculate how to convert this monthly rent into a lease. And this is done by applying the monthly rent conversion renewal. So if it's 300, how much is the annual rent? So 300 times 12, 3,600, right? So that's 36 million. So what do you divide the annual rent by? You divide it, the monthly rent, conversion renewal, you just divide 6% or 0.06, right? So how much is it? It becomes 600 million won. So then, if I add my original deposit of 200 million won to the 100 million won converted from the monthly rent of 3 million won, right? So how much does that come to? It's 800 million won, exceeding 700 million won. Does it exceed?
Get out.
It does exceed. So that won't work. It won't work. You can't guarantee insurance. Do you understand? So you take the monthly rent multiplied by 12 And then you divide that by the monthly rent conversion rate of 6% or 0.06. After that, you add the deposit, and that gives you the total amount for the converted deposit for the Jeonse. That's how it works. So they are going to completely eliminate high monthly rents like that. This is how it's being done now.
Why did HUG announce its revised improvement plan this time? Why do you think they did it?
To me, it seems like they're just trying to pull the wool over our eyes. First of all, they should have made sure this kind of thing didn't happen in the first place. I don't think they couldn't have predicted this. Right. But when you're working...
Are you taking sides now?
No, that's not it, but this doesn't align with HUG's purpose of supporting the underprivileged, does it? It doesn't match at all, right? And guaranteeing high monthly rent is really something that will get them in trouble. It's a lack of responsible management. That's right. And the Korea Housing Finance Corporation has already implemented it. Even though it's September, this is still a step behind. They have now introduced it based on the Jeonse conversion rate. It's really unfortunate that these huge companies haven't even done this. Well, I don't think there are people who don't know about real estate.
Anyway, what kind of effects, benefits can we exactly expect from this change?
I don't think there'll be any expected effects.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so. And now the important thing is, wouldn't it be better if you didn't do it? I mean, they were just trying to cover themselves honestly. Seriously, they were just trying to make excuses. How many high-rent Jeonwon leases can there really be, right? When you look at the overall situation, it's going to be very minimal. But the important thing is, what you all need to realize is that HUG is really struggling now. Is it HUG or hurdle now? It's a hurdle, right? We should change HUG to hurdle. It's really struggling. I think we should change the hue too. Oh, right, it is HUG, because look at this. Until 2021, there was still some profit. But in 2022, it was 400 billion. 2023, it was 3 trillion. And in 2024, it's almost 4 trillion. So in 23 or 24 years, almost 4 trillion. In total, we suffered a huge loss, nearly 8 trillion won. What would happen if a regular company faced such losses? It's a mess. So what we really need to do is, don't just review the Jeonwon guarantee standards. They absolutely need to be strengthened significantly. It's just completely turning a blind eye. They're saying that they're currently doing this with UMBA, right? They'll delay to avoid market shock. But the plan is clear. It's backed by public guarantees and taxes. This is currently being supported by public guarantees and essentially taxes, which is completely a house of cards. So, this Jeonwon loan, which didn't exist before, started being implemented in the early 2010s. And with the backing of guarantee insurance, the real estate market was somewhat stable at that time. It kept rolling along. But ultimately, because of this, the real estate market has risen too much. And now that the housing bubble has formed, we're in this chaos. Policies like this, which are kind of like spoon-feeding or treating people like children, are really not good. So I think if the government focuses well on the supply side, that would be enough. So what's the problem? So getting on one guarantee insurance is becoming increasingly difficult. What does that mean? The trend of Jeonse converting to monthly rent is expected to become even more pronounced.
As it is, the indicators show monthly rent is increasing significantly. The indicators show that the volume of Jeonse transactions is decreasing.
So, some news reports have incorrect information, but I'll check those facts for you a bit later. So now in HUG, the deposit, return guarantee, collateral, and recognition ratio are lowered from 90% to 80%. We're talking about this right now. You need to do this quickly. Is there really any policy without side effects? But if we keep delaying and postponing things out of fear, like with the mother-in-law's requests, the country is just going to keep spending all our taxes. We really need to get this done. The Jeonse needs to be lowered by 80%. I really hope we can make this happen. The Jeonse needs to be lowered by 80%. Why? Among all the housing, the Jeonse guarantee accidents have occurred. 84.6% are homes with Jeonse prices that are over 80%. Almost all of the accidents have occurred in homes where the Jeonse price is over 80%. What does the Jeonse price ratio mean? The difference between the sale price and the Jeonse price is only 20%, meaning it's at 80%. So if the sale price drops even a little, accidents happen. That's right. So honestly, I think this Jeonse guarantee is like pouring water into a bottomless pit. If we keep doing things like this and just keep taxing, we really don't have the capacity to spend money on these things, especially since the Korean economy is already struggling. So there are also people who say things like this. People, flocking to monthly rent. It's only natural. People are moving towards monthly rent. But because of this, the monthly rent prices are going up, and apartment prices are going up too. All right, let me fact check this for you. So if you look at this, this is the whole picture. The whole South Korea monthly transaction volume. This is just looking at apartments. This is the transaction volume for apartment sales. This is the transaction volume for Jeonse of apartments. This is the transaction volume for monthly rent of apartments. The monthly rent volume has increased. It has increased. But has only the monthly rent increased? Oh, but the Jeonse has increased too. But recently, what's been happening with this? It's decreasing again, height. So it's going down. And when it comes to apartments, the transaction volume for Jeonse is much higher than that for monthly rent. All right, let's look at it this way. So do you see the monthly rent is continuously decreasing? Are you accepting that? So about the Jeonse, are you accepting that for Jeonse too? The sales are decreasing too, right? Right now, it's not just the sales market. Both Jeonse and monthly rent are decreasing. Are you saying it's only focused on monthly rent? Does this look like a chart? It's only focused on monthly rent?
No, that's not it. This is transaction volume for apartments. First of all, apartments. Usually people prefer monthly rent for villas or open sales rather than apartments. So doesn't that lead to different results?
That's right. So looking at the data, this is the office tell. How is it? Why is that? For office tells for sure. So what does it all come down to? Where did the Jeonse fraud issue arise? Villas, townhouses, multifamily homes, and then office tells have such a high Jeonse rate that problems are arising from that. Right. So, because people are scared, what are they doing? Everyone is moving to monthly rent now. So, demand is shifting towards monthly rent. And since the market isn't doing well, the supply is limited, which is causing prices to go up right now. But it's not right to talk about it, as if this is the case for the entire real estate market. That's absolutely not the case.
That's right. Looking at it, the real estate types of the fraud itself are more villas or office tells than apartments. So it seems right that the monthly rent in those areas is going up. Yes, that's right.
There are many people who are really worried about the rising monthly rent, but considering our financial situation isn't getting any better, how many people can actually afford this rent? This definitely has its limits. So let me summarize everything. This definitely has its limits. So let me summarize everything. First of all, HUG is really facing a huge deficit, but the recovery rate is really low. And 92% of it is currently unrecoverable. So the reason we're putting this out is that it doesn't have many side effects. But I believe that when it's necessary, policymakers should act decisively. This is not the end. Are they lending for Jeonse and also guaranteeing the Jeonse deposit? I think this itself is too much of a gamble. And it is the sacrifice of this gamble, our taxes, public funds. So with this, please, everyone, I'm really going to ask you, for those of you watching this video, please leave a comment. I'm putting my money to HUG. That's some money. If the recovery rate is 8% and 92% is unrecoverable, would you invest in HUG? Monthly rent is trending, seen in office tel and villa markets, not yet in apartments. Lack of transparency is the reason. You can't see villa prices. I don't know if we can just pretend it doesn't exist, but I really don't think I'll put my money in. You absolutely shouldn't do that. It would be a huge mistake. Everyone, because of this, there's a high possibility that monthly rent will become the trend in the future. This is already happening in the office tel and villa elite markets. While apartments still have a lot more Jeonse, apartments aren't there yet. The reason for this is that the information isn't transparent. You can't see the actual transaction prices for villas and office tels, but you can see the actual transaction prices for office tels if you look. Just so you know, everyone, let me share this with you. You go to Richgo, right? The villas here are so fragmented that I can't put anything in yet. But if you look at the Richgo map, you can go to this area of office tels. Then we have office tels. Let's take a look at office tels in the Gangnam area. So if you look here, there are quite a few units in this area. So let's check it out. For example, let's look at the central Prisho near Gangnam Station. When you click on it, what's the current sale price?
330 million.
330 million? See, asking price. How?
295.
It reached 280 million. It's 290 million to 330 million. Let's get Jeonse. How much Jeonse price?
270 million. 267 million.
How much was it? The Jeonse? 390 million low price. So, what's the gap between the sale price and the Jeonse right now?
Nothing.
There are almost none. There's almost nothing. But honestly, I think we really need to change this in the office-tel market, first of all, you shouldn't be signing contracts without checking the actual transaction prices of good office-tels. Everyone, this is your hard-earned money we're talking about. Right now, the lowest John's price is 270 million, but look at the sale prices here. It's only 330 million and 318 million. And if you look at the lowest asking price, it goes down to 290 million. So how much is it? If it drops by just about 10%, John's price will immediately fall as well. I mean, does it even make sense that the hub is guaranteeing this right now? The price fluctuations can change by about 10% or 20% just like that. But at the very least, we should check this kind of data before deciding whether to provide a guarantee. And as brokers, we need to look at this and focus on persuading clients. Right now, the sale price and the John's price are too close, so we should say that if you take the John's now, it could cause problems. So, the lack of transparency and information, especially for OPCs, we've at least included them in the Rich Code, but for multifamily homes and townhouses, regular people can't even find that information.
In fact, most Johnson scams have occurred in multifamily homes and townhouses. That's right. Villa King and stuff like that. That's right.
But once you set your mind to it, you can create a system, you can make anything.
Please make it.
Please, contact me. Please, call governments, get in touch with us. We're currently working with the Koreal, Geospatial Informatics Corporation, and quite a few other places. We're working a lot with the financial sector, and if we create a system to at least check this kind of data, then these problems wouldn't rise in the first place. So we can only guarantee the safe cases, and for some, you have to take responsibility yourself. So you're partially paying and then switching to monthly rent. For example, let's say sale price is 300 million won. So if you take a John's of just 200 million won, then there's 100 million won difference, which means there's enough downward rigidity at around 30%. Then paying around 50,000 to 100,000 won in monthly rent, something individuals should do. But if we don't do this, each local government is just matching John's prices. And for young people starting out in their careers, their entire life is riding on their John's deposit. It's a huge risk, right? This is for everyone. So it's not good for people living in John's either. It's not good for the real estate agents either. It's not good for the homeowners either. It's not good for Hug either. Everything is bad. So we need to quickly create transparency in the government. That's my top priority. How can we solve the fundamental issues? By just providing high-value support or whatever. It's not going to address the core problem. So I really hope that we can quickly establish a culture, the South Korean market, where decisions and judgments are based on data.
Today, we talked about the topic of Hug's announcement that they won't be enrolling high-value monthly rent tenants in the guarantee insurance. Honestly, we need to wait and see what kind of significant changes this policy will actually bring. As you said, I have a feeling that this might be a means of evading responsibility. Let's wait and see. If you enjoyed today's video, it would be great if you could subscribe and set the notification bell. Yes, thank you. I'll wrap up today's video here.